don't think there's anything new. Still trying. I kind of had a late start with this stuff. I'll see what I can find. I got a little bit, not too much. Talk about. I guess mountains. I'm just trying to find my stuff on Twitter. That's about it. Okay. Yep, there we go. I'm gonna go ahead and try this again. Good evening. I am Amber, and this is my live stream, Bones of Amber. Here we review news and recent events within the archaeological realm. We are a friendly and curious bunch here who enjoy sharing our love of history, science, archaeology, and evolution. So share the link with your friends, your family, coworkers, and anyone else you may know to get more viewers, but also just to spread the love of archaeology and the knowledge. So, you can share the link, and then down below, in the description of the video, I have a link for Discord, Twitter, and Patreon. Go ahead and follow me on Twitter. I follow a lot of other professional anthropologists, paleoanthropologists, and they're pretty active. It's quite nice. You can also kind of get away from some of the more like social-based aspects of Twitter. And then I also have my Discord where people talk. I link all of my sources in there, so if you ever want to follow up on something I talk about, you can do that there. And if you want to join in on movies or anything, sometimes they're documentaries, sometimes they're just silly pop culture ones. I do that. I also have a Patreon. Not active. It's active, but like it's not. I don't have a lot of people on it. So yeah, there's a link for there if you want to help fund the channel. See if I can get a better mic. I think that's about it. Oh, I also on Twitch. I have a Twitch channel where I will stream video games. Right now, I'm working through a what is it called? Evolution of Humankind Odyssey, where you are an ape of some sort and you evolve and see how quickly you can evolve. It took me a while to kind of start getting into the swing of things. It doesn't really tell you much, and it was kind of a pain, but I'm actually getting somewhere on it now. And then I also play other silly ones like Apex or Team Fortress, or I think I've also played what's it called? What's it called? I can't think of what it's called. And that's a shame. I'll look it up, see if I can find it. Team Fortress, Age of Empires, Counter-Strike. I do enjoy playing that one. And what's the other one? It's gonna bother me if I don't find out. Rocket League, yes, I have played Rocket League on there. I suck. Like, I say I'm bad at video games, but that one, ooh, am I bad at? Like, it's sad. I can't maneuver at all. And it always takes me some time to learn how to maneuver in a video game, but that one is difficult. Anyways, we're going to go ahead and get started, shall we? Hope you guys are ready. I kind of looked up a thing, a presentation to kind of share some information on the hominin species Aurora tugenensis. I didn't get to do as much on it as I wanted, so I can do that today if people are interested, or we can wait and see if I can get some more information than I have, or like refine the presentation a bit better. Yeah, well, let's see what people say, shall we? And I hope the music is good. I hope you're enjoying that. Okay. Let me know if there's any audio issues. I always have them. Doesn't matter how I set things up, I always end up having some type of issue. Anyways, let's start with some Twitter things. I met this teeny ammonite in the wall of FHSU Union this morning. What is that? Fort Hays State. Okay, cool. So, you know, they have bricks, created from this sandstone, and in it you have a nice little fossil. So it's all around us. It's great. Any type of natural material we find, this is what it is. And even unnatural, you know, we have to make it from something. We just kind of destroy it in the process. But you can find things anywhere, and it's just a beautiful little fossil going on. Looks like there's something there, but I'm not sure what that is. Anyways, I figured that was a nice little touch to share. This, oh, it's so beautiful. There's a similar one. It's not banded like this, but it's similar coloring in Oregon. That I had a coworker who was flint knapping. Oh, so beautiful. Obsidian from Armenia is striped because some of its black magnetite grains oxidized when exposed to air while still hot and became red hematite. Then the lava churned, mixing volumes with black and red grains, and stretched like pulling taffy, creating alternating stripes. So you got one layer placed, another layer placed, and then you kind of got them mixed a little bit, and then they got stretched, and you got this beautiful coloring going on. I love the color of this. If I could make jewelry and stuff out of this, I totally would. So beautiful. And you can actually tell that this was knapped, so you got the little apex going on right here, and then the curve. So it was hit right here with a rock, probably a rock of some sort. Their knapping tool right here, and then it radiated and took this whole flake off up here. And then you got a little bit of shadow here, you got some shadow over here, which is just due to the structural integrity of the material. You're more likely to get this really nice fine stuff with obsidian. Obsidian, if you nap it, you can actually get it sharper than a scalpel. Like, we cannot make something as sharp as obsidian can break, because it's down to the molecular structure, how sharp it gets. You break it and you could shave yourself super easy. So, like, shave the hair. I mean, I have seen that done. And then, you gotta be really careful not to cut yourself when flint knapping, especially with obsidian, because it's glass. It's so sharp. Okay, one more. What is this? Whatever caused this femur bone injury on the distal area of the shaft healed during the life of this medium to large medieval Dublin dog. Okay, so femur is the thighs. The biggest bone we got. It's the thighs. And on the distal end, so down by the knee, above the kneecap, you have this injury that was caused. And it did heal. You can see the healing going on. It's kind of a weird place, and Dublin dog in the medieval times. So, not sure what that is. I mean, it looks like something ground against it, maybe. It's hard to tell if there's any evernation going on. It doesn't look like it. Evernation is like when two bones start rubbing together, they kind of polish each other, and you'll get some really sleek, shiny spots. And yeah, I can't tell if it's there. It might just be a cysta form maybe or something. I'm not sure. lots of different injuries that can occur. All right, Neanderthals of the North. Were Neanderthals really as well adapted to a life in the cold as previously assumed, or did they prefer more temperate environmental conditions during the last ice age? To answer these questions, it is worthwhile to examine Neanderthal sites on the northern periphery of their range. After all, it was there that environmental fluctuations were most noticeable, especially as a result of repeated ice advances from Scandinavia. A region particularly suitable for such investigations is northern Germany, with its numerous documented Neanderthal sites. In a recent study, researchers from MPIEA, lights from outside are kind of flickering in here, and please don't mind back here this like wall of light coming in. It's just that time of day when the light comes through that window, and I actually do have curtains there, but they're not like blackout curtains, so it just completely overdoes it. Thirsty. Using an integrative research approach, the team has combined analytical methods from archaeology, luminescence dating, sedimentology, and micromorphology with the study of pollen and phytoliths to explore in detail the relationship between human presence in the north and changing environment conditions. Phytoliths is like the microscopic seeds and not dander, pollen, not dander, pollen. No, I'm looking at that. A window into environmental history. Archaeological excavations are a window into environmental history, says Michael Hine, a geographer at MPIEVA. I think it said it up here, didn't it? Max Planck Institute, Evolutionary Anthropology. I wonder where there's the V. I guess evolutionary gets two. Have now investigated the remains of Neanderthals at a former lakeshore in Lichtenberg in the Wendland region, which is Lower Saxony. Using an integrative research approach, the team has combined analytical methods from archaeology. I've totally already read this. For this, most accurate dating possible is required, which in the case of Central Europe is still lacking from many climatic phases of the last ice age. Collecting environmental information and performing independent dating is of great interest to archaeology and paleoenvironmental research alike. In Lichtenberg, we have now succeeded in dating quite accurately the end of a pronounced swarm phase. The so-called Brora interstadial is 90,000 years to 90,000 years. Hine adds, thus the cooling of the continent would have coincided with the climate change in the Greenland ice and the North Atlantic. A direct coupling had so far only been suspected, but not proven for northern Germany. The settlement of northern areas also during cold phases. The study found that Neanderthals occupied a slightly wooded lakeshore about 90,000 years ago in a relatively temperate climate. Stone tools found at the former campsite attest to a variety of activities such as woodworking and plant processing. Already between 1987 and 1994, the Landesmuseum Hanover excavated a site close to Lichtenberg containing bifacial-backed knives, so-called Kellmesser, specialized cutting tools. In the excavations, the layers of the former campsite are located above the lakeshore campsite, which is associated with a temperate climate period, and date to a time about 70,000 years ago, when the last ice age's first cold maximum began. The researchers were thus able to prove that Neanderthals had indeed inhabited the northern regions even during cold phases. Flexible adaptation to environmental conditions. Changes in stone tools indicate that Neanderthals adapted in line with changing environmental conditions. And archaeologists at FAU in Lichtenberg, we were able to show that they repeatedly visited northern Central Europe, which developed from a heavily forested environment during the last warm period to sparse forests of a cold temperate climate period at the beginning of the last ice age, to the cold tundra of the first cold maximum. In this context, the stone tools, especially knives made of flint, show that Neanderthals' lakeshore site may have served a hunting party for a short stay. Evidence from other sites from the same time period indicates that during cold phases, Neanderthals likely visited their northern dwelling grounds, mainly during the summer months. Okay, they were snowbirds. Going north for the winter and north for the summer, south for the winter. I don't know about you, but I'm not digging the music. Let's see. See some music. Ooh, we can do some Baroque. Ooh. Yeah. Yeah. Come on. Oh, there we go. I love classical. Some Baroque is nice. Discovery sheds light on why the Pacific Islands were colonized. The discovery of pottery from the ancient Lapita culture by researchers at the Australian National University, ANU, has shed new light on how Papua New Guinea served as a launching pad for the colonization of the Pacific, one of the greatest migrations in human history. So let's pull that up for you. Papua New Guinea. To get a map so you guys can see what's going on. And if you have any knowledge about the Pacific Islanders, I just gotta give them props because they were moving around from like crazy distances, and they go from here to here to here to here, or from here to here to here. I don't know exactly how they did it, but they jumped all over the place, and it's crazy the distances they went over the ocean without any knowing that they were going to come across land. They set sail in their tiny boats. Like, when we think of, like, Asians or Europeans traveling abroad seas in their wooden ships, you're like, that's crazy. I can't believe you did that and thought the world was flat and you were going to the end of the world and you found the Americas and shit like that. But the Polynesians were doing this long before, and in much smaller rafts. Boats. I guess I'll say boats instead of rafts, but I think that's absolutely amazing, and they should get more props, and a lot more history should be taught about them. Just because it's amazing. So here we have Australia, and we have China and Japan, India over here. So Papua New Guinea, it's a nice big ass island, it's a pretty sizable, and it's actually split in two. So Papua New Guinea is only on this half. Over here is not. I think it's part of Indonesia. I think all of you go from here is all of Indonesia. So the Polynesians jumped islands. Here's Samoa. You got another one out here. The French Polynesia. And you got Hawaii up here. Like, a lot of people, Hawaii is part of the US, but it's way away from it. And like, when we link Alaska and Hawaii in our maps, we kind of just put them right here and we shrink it, especially like we blow Hawaii up and then we shrink Australia, and it just really gives you um, a like skewed view. I mean, this is Alaska. Like, it takes up that much of freaking continental U.S. But anyways, we have Hawaii, which was originally inhabited by the Hawaiians, which are Polynesians, which are somewhat Samoans and Fijians and all of that. But it's believed that they came in from here and made their way like this. So, okay, let's go back now that you have an idea of where that is at. New study makes clear the initial expansion of the Lapita people throughout Papua New Guinea was far greater than previously thought. The study, published in the Nature, Ecology, and Evolution journal, is based on the discovery of a distinctive Lapita pottery sherd, a broken piece of pottery with sharp edges, on Burker Island in 2017 that led researcher Dr. Ben Shaw said was like finding a needle in a haystack. Lapita cultural groups were the first people to reach the remote Pacific islands, such as Vanuatu, around 3,000 years ago. But in Papua New Guinea, where people have lived for at least 50,000 years, the time and extent of Lapita dispersals are poorly understood. For a long time, it was thought Lapita groups avoided most of Papua New Guinea because people were already living there. The study shows Lapita people introduced pottery to Papua New Guinea that had distinct markings, as well as new technologies and animals such as pigs. We found lots of Lapita pottery, a range of stone tools, and evidence for shaping of obsidian into sharp blades. As we dug deeper, we reached an even earlier cultural layer before the introduction of pottery. What amazed us was the amount of mammal bone we recovered, some of which could be positively identified as pig and dog. These animals were introduced to New Guinea by Lapita and were associated with the use of turtle shell to make tools. Dr. Shaw said the new discovery explains why the Lapita people colonized the Pacific Islands 3,000 years ago, and the role of indigenous populations in New Guinea had in Lapita decisions to look for new islands to live on. According to Dr. Shaw, later Lapita dispersals through PNG and interaction with indigenous populations profoundly influenced the region as a global center of cultural and linguistic diversity. It is one of the greatest migrations in human history, and finally, we have evidence to help explain why the migration might have occurred and why it took place when it did. We had no indication this would be a site of significance, and a lot of the time we were flying blind to the areas we surveyed, and when looking for archaeological sites, so it is very much like finding the proverbial needle in a haystack. The research involved many ANU researchers and international collaborators who showed how migration pathways and island hopping strategies culminated in a rapid, purposeful Pacific-wide settlement. A lot of our good fortune was because of the cultural knowledge, and we built a strong relationship with the locals based on honesty and transparency about our research on their traditional lands. Without their express permission, this kind of work would simply not be possible. The Burka community is listed as the senior author on the paper to acknowledge their fundamental role in these research. So one of the things anthropologists are really trying to do is to incorporate the historical knowledge of the indigenous peoples, something that wasn't always done very well in the past. And a lot of these oral histories can be really, really valuable in understanding the past of these peoples. Yes, it might be a little, not to insult, but a little distorted because it can be a bit of a game of telephone where things get a little exaggerated or details are lost and stuff like that. But for the most part, it is pretty valuable. Think about it as your grandparents telling you where your family comes from. You know, not everybody goes through birth records and marriage records and everything. But having that physical explanation can help as well, you know? people still do that, and hence the physical aspect of archaeology. What is this video? Ooh, 26 minutes. We are not going to do that. Excavation of the 4,300-year-old Rutunga site and the discovery of Lapita, Booker Island, PNG. So I would recommend you guys to check this video out. I'm not going to play it because it's nearly 30 minutes long, but yeah, go check it out, see if it's good and interesting. I think I totally messed up here. Hold on. I think I closed something I shouldn't have. No, I didn't. Really? It did. Okay, there we go. Alright. Back on it. I accidentally closed one of my things and I still gotta link it in the Discord, so if you want. Yeah, you can get this article with the YouTube link in the Discord as well. The link for that is in the description below. So go ahead and join us. Ancient skeletons reveal the history of worm parasites in Britain. New research led by researchers from the Department of Biology and Archaeology, Oxford, and published today in PLOS, Neglected Tropical Diseases, reveals the scale of parasitic worm infections in Britain from the prehistoric to the early Victorian periods. This type of research provides a unique insight into the lives and habits of past populations, their general health, cooking practices, diet, and hygiene. Understanding how parasitic worm infections changed in the past can help public health measures in regions of the world still experiencing problems today. Humans are infected with roundworms and whipworms through contamination by fecal matter and catch some tapeworms by eating raw or undercooked meat or fish. Infections with parasitic worms are a big problem in many parts of the world today, particularly in some tropical and subtropical regions of the world, but in the past, they were much more widespread and were common throughout Europe. The research team wanted to find out the size and scale of parasitic worm infections in the UK over the course of history, so they looked for worm eggs in the soil from the pelvises of skeletons. They tested a lot of individual skeletons. 464 human burials were examined from 17 different sites, dating from the Bronze Age to the Industrial Revolution. People in the Roman and late medieval periods fared the worst, with the highest rates of worm infection detected. The infection rates were similar to those seen in the most affected regions today. Things changed in the industrial period. Worm infection rates differed a lot between different sites. Some sites had little evidence of infection, while in others there was a lot of infection. The researchers think that local changes in sanitation and hygiene may have reduced infection in some areas before nationwide changes during the Victorian sanitary revolution. The co-first authors, Hannah Ryan and Patrick Flammer, said defining the patterns of infection with intestinal worms can help us to understand the health, diet, and habits of past populations. More than that, defining the factors that led to changes in infection levels without modern drugs can provide support for approaches to control these infections in modern populations. The team will next use their array of parasite-based approaches to investigate their infections in the past. This includes more large-scale analysis of human burials, as well as continuing their ancient DNA work. Their ambition is to employ a multidisciplinary approach, working closely with archaeologists, historians, parasitologists, biologists, and other interested groups to use parasites to help understand the past. So they're hoping that this information can be utilized to help in regions today without having to create expensive medications like uh, for treating these. But hopefully they come out with it. Obviously, if there was a change between the certain locations after the Industrial Revolution, they were able to get things under control somehow. I know in like the times when, sorry, my hair kind is like not working. Okay, hold it. I'm talking about like medieval and Roman period. There was a lot of traveling going on in the Roman period. I know people would make religious voyages and such. Roman people would invade the UK and all kinds of stuff. Just different social practices occurred. They had like bathhouses and everything. So yeah, interesting stuff. And moving on, Magdalenian art animated by firelight. While working on the construction of a railway, French engineer Hecata de L'Isle found some flint tools and some artifacts like a carved spear thrower in the shape of a mammoth and a swimming reindeer sculpture, along with some engraved flat stones. These artifacts were created by Magdalenian people between 16,000 to 13,500 years ago. These engraved flat stones, made of limestone, have been analyzed by a group of archaeologists from the United Kingdom, and they published their results in PLOS 1. So in this one, this is what they've got. You kind of got the picture. I don't really see what it is. And here you got a tail going on. You got legs, so probably some type of cow or something. I really hope that that is a shoulder blade and not meant to be the face with an eye here, because that would look derpy as hell. Okay, these authors included the makers of these engraved limestone plaques, placed them around hearths. The flicker of the fire would animate the engraved images and make the images come to life. Okay, there was really not any information here. Just a claim that that's what happened. Well, that sucks. I think this is the one where they were talking about the ear surgery that occurred. I may not use this anymore because they really do not give any information at all, and it sucks. Okay. Study challenges theories of early human arrival in Americas. A new analysis of archaeological sites in the Americas challenges relatively new theories that the earliest human inhabitants of North America arrived before the migration of people from Asia across the Bering Strait. Okay, conducted by the University of Wyoming professor Todd Sorovell and colleagues from UW and 5 other institutions, the analysis suggests that misinterpretation of the archaeological evidence at certain sites in North and South America might be responsible for theories that humans arrived long before 13 to 14,200 years ago. The researchers' findings appear today in PLOS ONE, a journal published by the Public Library of Science. The paper is the latest development in the debate over the peopling of the Americas, in which some are now questioning the long-held consensus that the first Americans were hunter-gatherers who entered North America from Asia via the Beringia land bridge up to 14,200 years ago. Some people say like 20,000 years ago. I've read that. And then dispersed southward between 2 large glaciers that then covered much of the continent. If you don't know where that bridge is, it's through Russia into Alaska and then down. So that land bridge, it's water now, but at the time it was a land bridge and you could cross it, and that's how the theory of how people got to the Americas. The conclusions of Sorreville and colleagues are based on an analysis of buried archaeological deposits using a new statistic called the Apparent Stratigraphic Integrity Index they developed. While the stratigraphic integrity of early archaeological sites in Alaska is high, producing strong evidence in support of unambiguous human occupation, the sites in more southern locations, according to possible earlier human occupation, show signs of artifact mixing among multiple time periods. If humans managed to breach the continental ice sheets significantly before 13,000 years ago, there should be clear evidence for it in the form of at least some stratigraphically discrete archaeological components with a relatively high artifact count. So far, no such evidence exists. Our findings support the hypothesis that the first human arrival to the New World occurred by at least 14,200 years ago in the Beringia and by approximately 13,000 years ago in the temperate latitudes of North America. Strong evidence for human presence before those dates has yet to be identified in the archaeological record. Specifically, the new analysis compared the stratigraphic integrity of 3 sites argued to contain evidence of earlier human occupation, 2 in Texas and 1 in Idaho. With the integrity of sites in Alaska, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania, the 3 sites claimed to be older than 13,000 years ago all showed patterns of significant mixing while the others did not. The researchers were unable to obtain detailed information about some other sites in North and South America purported to contain evidence of human occupation before 13,000 years ago. Sites claimed to be older than 13,000 years ago are few, and data supporting their status as sites have been poorly disseminated. Sorreville and colleagues wrote, given the status of available data regarding these sites, we must question whether there are any sites in the Americas south of the ice sheets that exhibit an unambiguous and stratigraphically discrete cultural occupation with sufficient numbers of artifacts of clear human manufacture. The paper doesn't completely rule out the possibility that humans colonized the Americas at an earlier date, but if they did, they should have produced stratigraphically discrete occupation surfaces, some of which would be expected to have large numbers of artifacts. That they did so in Beringia, but failed to do so south of the continental glaciers, suggests that either there was something fundamentally different about pre-Clovis human behavior and or geomorphology south of the ice sheets, or that the evidence indicating the presence of humans south of the ice sheets has been misinterpreted. The researchers wrote, at a minimum, it shows that when stratigraphically discrete occupations are not present, additional studies must be performed to demonstrate that stratigraphic integrity of association between artifacts and dated strata exists. Joining Sorreville in the research were UW colleagues Sarah Allen. Okay, I'm not going to read all this. It's just all the contributors. So, yeah, it is a big debate on when people got to the Americas, and obviously claiming the ancestral history there for Native American tribes is really important to them, and it is part of being able to get your tribal status, federal tribal status, and get the legal and social benefits of that. But that's a whole different topic that could go on. But when people arrive, it is really debated, and I've seen people really try to push it farther back than I think is really, personally, from what I know, is really possible, knowing what was going on with the climate and the glaciers at the time. But there are certainly people who have made entire careers on trying to figure out when people arrived here, and it's complicated, and a lot of people argue about it. That's something about anthropology is it the interpretations by different people can lead to a lot of debate and arguments and um, complications, especially when articles are put out and the public snags onto them. One such evidence is Kennewick Man. Kennewick Man is a Native American remains that were located in Washington State, and they were very old. I want to say like 9,000 years old. I'm not quite 100% sure when they were dated to, but that led to so many issues. And one of the researchers on it had a like mock-up sketch of what Kennewick Man might have looked like, and the coloration that they decided to use was much paler, and he ended up coming out looking like Jean-Luc Picard. So we had Patrick Stewart here, and then another one was made with a kind of darker complexion, and they still looked a lot alike, I think, but there is clear differences. And the issue with trying to take a skeletonized remains and make how that person would have looked is not perfect by any means. If any of you have seen the show Bones, one of the characters in there, that was her job. The artist one is to do a mock-up of what the person might have looked like. There is a lot of different things you can take because the soft tissue isn't there. You're going to not look the same. It's going to be slightly off. And I don't think that show kind of indicated that enough. Let's see if I can find the picture of Kennewick Man. So let's see. Here's one. This is the first one that came out, and yeah, it's just because the clay, they chose that color, but this is what they made him out to look like. They didn't give him really any hair other than eyebrows, which I can understand because you don't know what hair this person could have had. And then you have this guy right here. So they chose to give him hair. They used a darker clay to give him a bit more of a darker complexion, which can vary amongst Native Americans as well. But yeah, and then it varies amongst individuals too, depending on the year and what they've been up to and stuff like that. So the tan of him, I think, isn't too important. I know that the public kind of snagged onto it, and since he kind of looks like Patrick Stewart, made it seem like it was Europeans arrived in the Americas first. So really, anthropologists, archaeologists have a very big responsibility in making sure that their work isn't taken out of context, and that one article isn't shown to be 100%, law of what happened, because it's not. And this was the second one made up. They still look a lot alike if you can look past the superficial things. The nose is still pretty large and a little bulbousy. He's got a pretty good crease going on here and everything, so a pretty good pronounced glabella. And then his eyes, how they're shaped, is pretty similar. The image kind of makes these ones look a little creepy, to be honest. The coloring of this kind of humanizes him more. They aged him, gave him some crow's feet and everything. They gave him a little bit more around that mouth than we can tell here. But, you know, he's got the beard. So that makes it kind of difficult to show. And then judging by this lower lip, they didn't give him a huge lower lip, but, you know, kind of wide, and it's kind of hard to tell where exactly this ends. See, doing the hair, it makes it easier for us to humanize them, but and kind of give them a personality, but it makes it hard to kind of compare and see what they came up with. But, you know, the coloring of an individual isn't going to be exact. We don't know if he had this type of hair. Maybe he had darker hair, you know? I don't know. Without actually having it or doing a DNA test on him, we didn't know. But, yeah. And then we can't see ears, but that's all cartilage and stuff. So, very pronounced cheekbones, and this guy still has very pronounced cheekbones. I think they got some things right with him. They definitely got some things right, and just how you present it can be very detrimental. So we have to be very careful about that. All right, moving on. Several expansion events from an out of Africa hub peopled Europe, peopled Europe, Asia, and the world. Ooh, that is a terrible title. Bako Kiro Cave in central Bulgaria has been a sort of paleoanthropological and archaeological gold mine. The first findings of human remains and stone tools came out in 2015, and the oldest fossils and artifacts are dated to be around 45,000 years old. This makes the site the oldest Upper Paleolithic deposit in Europe, and it has proven to be an important timestamp in understanding modern human evolution. Thirsty. All right. See, last year, Nature published a paper that analyzed the ancient DNA of 3 of these individuals and concluded that these people were more genetically related to East Asians and the Americans than to Western Eurasians. What also confounded that analysis is evidence of Neanderthal integration in these 3 individuals. This is another line of evidence that the first European humans were mixing and mingling with Neanderthals. Another paper, also published last year, but in Nature Ecology of Evolution, looks at the genome of a female from Zlati Kon, Czechia, who lived in a similar time frame. She also died sometime around 45,000 years ago. Her genome is 3% Neanderthal. Her Neanderthal genes are longer than our others, leading to an inference that she is one of the earliest out-of-Africans known to date. But looking closer at her genome, she has no genetic impact on later Europeans and Asians. It is curious how spatially and temporally both the Baki trio and the Zlati Kun are to one another, but have had few genetic similarities. So, just what happened? Okay. See? Not enough information. I don't like these articles. I'm gonna have to stop using this. I don't like this. This website. They never give enough information. Okay. Next. Oh. What's that? No. Okay. So John Hawkes, really active archaeologist. I quite love his stuff. He's very active on Twitter. He has a blog that he updates regularly, kind of talks about things and what other people in the field are doing and talking about. And yeah, I really like how active he is. He's really good at getting things out to the public. Very about like open source stuff. I quite like it. I would recommend either subscribing to his Twitter or following his blog. One thing I've learned with Homo naledi is how much of a challenge it can be to analyze juvenile fossils. Some great work from Z. Kofrin and many other colleagues putting this tiny ilium into evolutionary context. So the ilium is the hip bones. It's a nice big fan. It's part of the pelvis. The pelvis is created by 3 different bones that fuse together. So we have this, and apparently it is a juvenile, which it's not fully developed, it's not fully fused. And then you have indication. I think one of these shows human, another one shows a chimp, and then the image is actually the infant. But it's got a little bit more curve to it. Interesting. Okay. Kind of analyzing juvenile fossils can be extremely difficult because they aren't done forming. They're not done moving. You haven't gone through puberty. You're gonna change a lot. Your bones are gonna structure differently, and you females will note that your hips widen quite a bit, and that's just gonna be a result from changes to your pelvis, which is this bone part of. This is part of the pelvis, but yeah, can be very difficult. Trying to analyze infant bones, not just juvenile bones. It's difficult trying to identify them because they have so many more bones. Everything's in pieces because it hasn't fused. The spines are 3 different parts. Each one is in 3 different parts instead of 1 vertebra. So, really difficult. But this is amazing, and I like how they've superlaid the Homo sapien one, and I think it's a chimp one. So, yeah. Anyways, I definitely check out John Hawks. And that is pretty much all I have for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's show, and I will see you guys next Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific. Let me know if you have any questions or anything you might want to go over. I was going to do the Lawrencehensis, but I think I want to incorporate a few more things in it before I actually present to you guys. So sadly, I won't be doing that today. You'll get that next week. Catch me on Twitch. I don't have any designated times when I do stream that. It's just when I feel like it. And yeah, you guys have a wonderful evening. Take care.